Hello everyone, welcome back to baking. Today we're going to be making Cornish Fairings biscuits and we need to preheat the oven, so let's get it ready. So turn to 180, gas mark 4. Let's get baking everyone.
Welcome to baking, it's me Jack.
And it's me Paul.
And this week Paul's going to prepare some lovely Cornish Fairings, which are a type of biscuit.
Really nice biscuits.
They're a little bit like a ginger nut, right? They're a little bit spiced, they're a little bit delicious.
Yeah, they come from Cornwall.
There we go.
Hence the Cornish Fairing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we had eggs in the intro, but I don't think there is actually eggs in this recipe.
No.
First thing, what are you doing?
So we get a pan, you get your weight scales, you zero your scales, then you cook your butter.
I believe it's 50 grams of butter.
I think it's 50 grams of butter. I think most of the ingredients are quite similar.
Okay, so why are we putting our butter in the pan?
So it's going into the pan because you need to melt your butter. So you're going to put your butter in the pan. I think the honey goes in there as well. The honey and sugar goes in there as well.
Here we go.
So here's the honey, and for this you need half a tablespoon of honey. I just randomly guessed because I've done these so many times. It's roughly about 10 grams.
Right.
Roughly.
And your honey is just to add a bit of sweetness, and it's also a little bit of a binding agent.
It gives it the colour as well.
Right, and it gives you the colour. So if you're not exactly precise, as usual, it'll work out.
And this is our brown sugar, soft brown sugar.
As usual, it's taking Paul 2 minutes to take the lid off.
Yeah, I put the lids on a bit too tight, to be honest. So I'm going to use a tablespoon just to help me weigh it out. And this is again 50 grams of light brown sugar. And just goes in.
The reason you'd use a spoon instead of tipping it straight in is if you use the bag or the container and you tip it straight, you might get too much.
Well, what happens with the brown sugar is because it's quite hard and it sticks together, it's quite sticky. So when you try and tip your brown sugar in, you could end up with a hole. You could end up with a lot more than what you need.
Right, and there you go. You can see our mix in the pan. What's going to happen now is Paul's going to take it over to the cooker.
Yeah, so you want to just have this on a gentle heat, nothing too high, just a gentle heat just to melt the butter. That's all you're looking for.
And just like magic, in a moment, Paul's going to walk back on. It's going to be all lovely and melted, but this might take you a little bit longer. Here we are.
So you'll just see it's all just melted. The sugar's dissolved, the honey's mixed in with it, and it should just look like a nice little liquid.
A brown syrup is what we're looking for.
A brown syrup. And this is where it gets quite quick because you're just going to add everything else. This was our pre-weighed plain flour. It's 87.5 grams of plain flour.
87.5 grams, there we go.
And
don't miss out on that half a gram, slap the bowl.
Then this is our pre-measured out spices. So in here we've got a quarter teaspoon of mixed spice, a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon, a quarter teaspoon of ginger, and a half teaspoon of bicarb. And that's everything that you need to make these biscuits.
And that bicarb is your raising agent, and the spices are for your flavours.
Well, it also adds the crack to the biscuit because it like crackles.
The way that the top of the biscuit's got those cracks in.
It's a science in bicarb. You'll see in everything you make with bicarb, it'll have a crack in it. It's the same thing with a carrot cake.
There we go.
And you just want to mix it together now with your spoon. Just make sure all the dry ingredients get mixed with the wet ingredients.
So you can use a wooden spoon, you can use a metal spoon, you can use a spatula, whatever works for you. You're just making sure that it all comes together into a rough dough.
Ideally, what you want to do is let your butter cool down ever so slightly. You don't want it to be as melted as mine, because mine is still quite warm at this point.
Right.
So you'll see it's still a little bit gloopy. It's still a bit too runny in my hands.
Right.
This is why I tip it into a bowl just to cool it down slightly.
Because the pan obviously is hot, so this is going to help it to cool down.
So I just wanted to help it cool down slightly. So just get the rest of it off there, tip it into the bowl. It's a fairly easy and simple recipe and doesn't take too long to make.
We're just out of focus for a moment. Sorry about that. Hang on. And there we go. So it looks sort of like a Play-Doh almost.
Yeah.
It's all come together. It's reasonably firm and you can shape it.
Yep. So you just want to get your baking tray, cut your greaseproof paper, so knife, no, scissors.
Scissors. Yeah, you've gone for scissors.
You've played knifey spoony before, ain't you?
Scissors are much safer to use than a knife when you're cutting things like this.
And I usually use scissors anyway. I don't use a knife. I don't know what I'm Sorry about. So you just want a nice little sheet to just cover it so it doesn't stick to your baking tray, basically. And there we go. Cut it off. Place it on your baking tray. Now you're ready to shape your little balls of dough.
So you do this by hand?
I do. All you do is break a piece off, roll it in your hand, softly and gently, and then just place it down. And you want to give it a little tap down. I don't think I did it with these ones because they were already quite soft.
Right.
I might do it later. I'm just pre-predicting.
If yours seem a little bit firm, you want to give them a little press down so they form like a puck.
Yeah. So you're going for like just a little bit smaller than a golf ball, basically. Right. But it should make 6. This recipe should make about 6 decent sized biscuits.
There we go.
To have with a nice cup of tea. Go perfect with a cup of tea, to be honest. So you just want them all to be quite even in size. Doesn't matter if they're a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, just as long as they're near enough about the same, because you want to even bake.
And you can see, because Paul's mixture was warm, the first two are already quite flat.
Yeah, they just flatten down.
Yours, if you cooled it, it probably will be a little bit firmer, which is a good thing, and you can then press it down with your hands.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So now they're ready to go.
Paul's going to take them over to the oven now.
And you're hot. Ready to go.
Those lovely shiny balls of dough. Here we go. So you can see they've flattened out much more now.
I didn't realise they flattened out that much.
That's about what we're looking for, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And into the oven, which we preheated earlier.
So I think you just want to bake these for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, and
just keep an eye on them.
We'll speed that along for you guys now. You can see. So they're gonna look domed. They're gonna look golden brown. But as they cool, they're going to flatten out and look a bit more like what you're expecting.
You can see on there the little cracks that are forming because of the bicarb.
That's because of that bicarb we added earlier. That makes sense.
So take them out when they look like this. So they should look golden brown around the outside and a little bit less.
And they will be soft at this point, won't they?
I think these were very soft when I was trying to take them off. I think I left them for a few seconds.
They've got a lot of fat and they've got a lot of sugar in them, which means that they are going to be soft. So we're going to leave them for a few seconds just to cool off slightly.
Yeah.
If yours are firm enough to remove straight away, you can put them straight on a baking rack.
I think me and you just had a little conflab about.
Yeah, I was gonna trim this bit off, and then I thought it was quite funny to see me wobbling the camera. And here we go. We've left them to cool for just, I think, 1 or 2 minutes at the most.
Yeah, and then come back. You can see they've already flattened. They were still a little bit soft at this point, but just about ready to.
So we want to let them fully cool on a cooling rack.
Yes.
To get the snap and the texture we're looking for.
You'll get a better texture if you put them onto a cooling tray because they won't go soggy on the bottom.
The sooner they can get on that tray, the better.
Yes, anyway. Absolutely. That's the same with most baking things. Yeah. You want to take them off the hot surface.
Lovely biscuits there.
And these are one of my favourite biscuits.
And here we go for the glamour shot, my favourite part of the episode, Paul.
There we go. The money shot.
Ooh. There we are. Look at those 6 gorgeous golden brown Cornish Fairings.
Beautiful biscuits.
Yeah.
They're quite similar to a gingerbread.
A gingerbread. I think they're quite similar to a ginger nut. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've just got that extra mixed spice in there.
Yeah.
And the butteriness. And so this has been our shortest ever, but perhaps best episode of Baking with Paul.
It has. It's been a pleasure as always.
And next week we're going to make roasted red pepper and tomato soup.
Oh, you nearly messed up my tongue twister there.
Nearly. Paul's favourite job. See you next time.
See ya.